Today we're going to be talking about the tools you need for concrete. Welcome back to the show. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. And we're going to be going over all these tools that you're going to be needing, as well as like the larger tools for doing bigger concrete jobs. But some of the basic things you're going to be needing is a float, like a wood float or magnesium float or some sort of float. You're going to need a trowel, and you might need to do the edges, so you're going to need an edger. Also, I recommend some sort of rubber gloves to protect your hands from getting all the cement on it. And if you do get cement on your hands from working with tile or concrete or any kind of masonry, whatever you're doing, I recommend using vinegar to wash your hands with after you're done. So, your float.
Mejor cementeros, porque no quiero gastar más en sacar el pedazo que tuve que sacar. Y luego ya ves que llevaba colores,
If you're doing a small area of concrete, just a small pad, like maybe under a yard of concrete, sometimes you can get away with just using just hand tools with no poles and extensions and all that stuff. And if that's the case, then maybe you could get away with just a float like this. One step that you should do before you float is what's called rodding the concrete. Usually we just use a 2x4, very straight 2x4, and we just skim the top of the concrete and get it level with just a 2x4 first.
Good. Awesome, good. Ya no más. Sí. Sí.
Once you've rodded the concrete, then it's time to float the concrete. So if you're doing a big pad, multiple yards of concrete, you're going to use a larger float, and I'll show you what that looks like right here.
Órale, vale, otro pasito.
Por eso me dio risa.
And maybe when you're doing a larger area, you're going to be using a larger bull float or some sort of float, and you're going to maybe have other guys working with you that are going around the edges, and they might be using a hand one. Then after you have it floated, you're going to want to make sure to do your edges. So this edger here is a 3-inch by 6-inch long edger, and it has a 3/8 radius. Okay, so this is a 3/8 radius here. You could get larger ones or smaller ones depending on if you need to match some existing concrete or however you want to design your concrete to look.
No pasa nada.
this is a real standard size one right here. And then you have your trowel. So this here is actually considered a pull trowel. And the reason is because it can flex on both sides like that. This center area of the support here is kind of short. So it has all that extra room to do a little bit of flexing on the coping of the pools and all that stuff. But it's nice to have a trowel that has round edges sometimes. It's also good to have trowels that have a nice square edge as well, just depending on what you're doing. A lot of finishers, what they'll actually have is one side will be rounded and the other side will be square. So, you know, just kind of depending on what you like and what you're used to. Another thing I use this particular trowel for is stucco. So it's kind of a must-have for stucco for me. So that's why I like to have it, but I can also use it sometimes with flat work if it's a small area. But you want to be careful and make sure that your trowel is very straight and not like bowed, especially if it's a pool trowel like this. And if you're using it on you know, flat concrete work. So those are the hand tools, you know, you'll be needing for a small area. Now, when it comes to a large area, these are the tools you're going to need. Okay, for the larger tools, for the larger areas, we got this magnesium bull float here. And you can use something like this, or they also have ones in wood. You know, so for a real large area, you know, this one is pretty heavy and it's going to skim across there pretty well. It's going to bring up probably more butter than wood would, but just depending on what you like to work with and the conditions, different finishers will prefer different ones. But this is your float. Then you also have your Fresno, which is like a trowel, but this is called a Fresno. And basically it's the one that's also going to have an extension pull coming off of it. So the extension pulls like this just have that clip so they can clip in there. And you can put as many pulls as you want. Same with the float. So also you have with this float, you're able to pivot this, right? So the reason is so that you can bring the front end up or the back end up easily so that it doesn't catch. We also have a funny trowel here. They're not real easy to use without a lot of experience. It does take practice, but with the funny trowel, you're able to stand back and go side to side like you would a normal trowel. You just got to be careful not to, you know, catch your edge with it. Like I say, it takes a little bit of practice and skill to use one of these, but it'll allow you to put the extension pull on there and stand back and do a big pad without actually having to go on there and use your hand trowel. So there you go. There's the big tools for the big areas. And then lastly, you're gonna need a broom for a broom finish if that's what you're going for, unless you're doing like a burn finish inside maybe a warehouse or inside a building where it has a shiny finish. We call that a burn finish. If it's outside, usually you don't want it to be slippery, so you'll go with what's called a broom finish, or maybe some stamped concrete, or whatever it is you're going with. But to do a broom finish, you're gonna need a broom like this. It's kind of skinny like that, and obviously you'll be able to screw in a pole, an extension pole, or depending on the size of the of the pad, but you have it on there, and then you'll dip this in some water or spray it off with a hose and get off the water.